Welcome to part 30, which is hopefully the final part of our text adventure game in multiple languages. This is the C# version, so we'll just run through it so you can see how it works. So as before, we've got this debug mode is on, but you'll notice we've now got a couple of sort of decorative lines either side of this question, so it just makes it look a little bit better. Again, I don't want to disable that. I want to leave the debug mode on, so we'll press N for that. And then we've got the option to choose the text file to load in for our game. So I'm going to use the school.txt. Again, we've got these double lines underneath the menu, just makes it look slightly better. If I press the space bar, it deals with that as it did before. So we'll choose 2. So if I just drag that out a little bit, we've got the items have now been created, and a kind of a much neater way of displaying them. So we've got the name of the item, we've got rusty key, pencil sharpener, paper, coat hanger, etc. There's obviously, it says enter for next screen. There are more items in this particular game. Then the object type is given here. These are all of type item, but the next screen will show you some of type weapon. It also gives you, if it's possible to make that item from other items, the craft from would have something, and then the description has been given its own line, so that if it's a very long description, it'll move on to the next line. So let's press enter for the next screen. So here we've got the next few along, and then we've got, for example, here, the sharp pencil is made from a blunt pencil and the pencil sharpener. So those are the two objects that you can use to make the sharp pencil. Now we've got down here, we've got an object weapon, which is the wire, and that's made from pliers and a coat hanger. So that's the two objects that make the weapon. Let's do the next screen. And then finally, we've got these 100 lines, which is of object weapon, and that's made from a sharp pencil and paper, obviously, to write your 100 lines. You'll see how this works shortly. So enter to continue. Now this just shows you the enemy. There's only one enemy, which is a playground bully. It shows his strength, health, anything that he's going to drop, which is a padlock key, and a description, which, as you can see, is a 2-line description, so it neatly spans across the lines here. And enter to continue. Now we're going to go through the locations. Again, they've been divided up into several screens. So we've got the first 3 here. It shows you if there's an item required to get into it. There's the name. For example, this cupboard needs a rusty key to get in. It shows you what's to the north, east, south and west of that one, and it obviously gives you a long description here, and also if there are any items in that location. So here we've got the pencil sharpener and a rusty key. So we'll press the next one to show you the next ones. Just going through them all, I don't think I need to show you all of them. And now finally the game starts. So the screen size returns to 80 by 25. And then it gives a little kind of an introduction here. And again, as before, asking for your name, but this time between the two parallel lines. If we hit the space key, we get nothing. Brief description, and then, as before, the menu. Now the menu now fills the full width of the console, and again the choice underneath. So it just neatens up this whole thing. So we'll choose 2 for that one. Final debug thing just shows you the player's properties, the name, the health and strength of the character, and if there was anything in the inventory. Enter to continue. So again, this is the kind of the question as to what your aims are in the adventure game. And here we are in the kind of the main game playing menu. So we've got a description, we've got a line at the top, then we've got where we are and the description of it, and then if there's anything here that you can interact with. On the what next screen, we've got the anything that you can examine or take, because these are the items there. And then with the go north and go south, this arrow points to exactly where we can go, whether it's not just go north, it's go north to the cupboard, so you know where you're heading, which is a bit more helpful. Let's initially take I'll do a quick examine there so you can see how that works. So it just says you examine the pencil sharpener, it gives you a couple of seconds, then it disappears again. We'll take the pencil sharpener, put it into your backpack. We might as well take the rusty key while we're at it. Okay, so the main game menu shrinks in size depending on how much is there. Now we've picked up everything from the inside the dormitory, so obviously there is no description of any items, and none of them appear in here. Let's go north to the cupboard. So you use the rusty key to enter, and inside again, cupboard, tells you about the cupboard. Is there something in here you can adapt? So you've got a much longer description which now spans 2 lines, and that's all been neatly accommodated in the code there. Then we can again choose these items. So let's take the coat hanger, and we'll take the paper, and then we'll go south to the dormitory, and now we'll go south to the stairwell. Let's examine, no, let's just take the pliers, I think. Just take those. Okay, so we can't do much more apart from going back into the dormitory or to go south to the office. So let's go south to the office, and it says you need the key retriever in your inventory to go that way. So let's open the inventory and see exactly what we have got. Okay, so we've got a pencil sharpener, a rusty key. We know the rusty key was used in the cupboard, so I think we can probably drop that because we don't need that again. So we'll drop the rusty key. So our menu has reduced. Let's examine the pencil sharpener. Cheap plastic pencil sharpener, the blade is loose. Okay, let's have a look at the coat hanger. A wire coat hanger, the type you can use as a replacement car aerial. Right, okay, that's useful. Let's try examining the paper. Sheet of paper torn from a school exercise book. Okay, let's examine the pliers. Budget tool made by Draper, good for bending and straightening. Oh, let's just get that one again. Good for bending and straightening metal. Right, we've got a clue here. Maybe we can use this. And 9, look, is craft a new item. So let's hit 9, and we've got choose between 4 items. So we've got a coat hanger, and we've got the pliers that can straighten metal. So let's take the coat hanger and the pliers, and it says, oh, you crafted a wire. That's handy. So we've got that wire is now in our let's examine the wire. Stiff piece of wire, about 50 centimeters, looks like a car aerial. Haha, very funny. Okay, let's examine that again. It's a weapon with 10 hit points. Oh, neat. Okay, so we've got ourselves a weapon, but we still haven't got a key retriever. Let's exit the menu. Concrete stairwell, bare walls and a spider's web surround you. The doors have gaps under them. The door at the top has a key in the other side. If only you could get it out. Okay, so this would be where the key retriever is. Now, I'm thinking if you've got gaps under the doors and there's a key in the other side, maybe you could poke the wire through, but we haven't got any way of using anything, have we? We don't have any in our inventory use wire, so but having said that, if you push the key out with the wire, you'd need to be able to pull it under the door, so you need something to drag it out with. Right, let's go back to open the inventory. So we've got paper and we've got a wire. Excellent. Right, let's craft a new item. So we're going to use the paper and the pencil sharpener. My crafting skills are inadequate. Okay, let's try that again. We'll use the paper and the wire. We crafted a key retriever. Neat. Okay, so we can now use the key retriever. I presume that's in our inventory because it's in that option. Okay, let's exit the menu. And we'll go south to the office. Use the key retriever to enter. Okay, so we're in the office. Let's examine the blunt pencil. Faber-Castell point has worn completely flat. Right, okay, well, we've got a pencil sharpener. Let's do some clever stuff now. So let's take the blunt pencil and we'll open the inventory and we'll craft a new item. We'll use the pencil sharpener and we'll use the blunt pencil, and we crafted a sharp pencil. Nice. Okay, so you'll see that we've still got paper, we've still got the wire, we've still got our key retriever, but and we've now got a sharp pencil, but we don't have a blunt pencil anymore, and we don't have a pencil sharpener. So those two items have disappeared. They no longer are available. So let's exit the menu and let's go east to the playground. Okay, so we're in the playground, school playground, a rough tarmac surface, faded white painted lines. Maybe doing something like nice for the bully could make him less mean. Okay, let's attack the playground bully. I think that would be useful. So it says choose your weapon. Well, we know that the wire, because we saw it, was a weapon. So let's choose the wire. You attack the playground bully with a wire, inflicting 10 damage points, and we got 50. Wow, we're not going to last long if we got that. I'm thinking maybe the wire is not an ideal way of attacking the bully. Maybe doing something nice for the bully could make him less mean. I seem to remember in his description that he needed to do 100 lines. Okay, let's open the inventory and we'll craft a new item, and we'll use the paper and a sharp pencil, and we've crafted 100 lines. Oh, neat. Okay, so we'll exit that menu and we will now attack the playground bully again. This time we'll use the 100 lines. There we are, 100 damage points. The playground bully is dead and drops a key. Okay, so we'll examine the key. Small brass key. Yeah, great. Let's take the padlock key. Right, now hopefully we can go south to the outside world. We use the padlock key to enter. We're in an outside world. You've escaped and are standing in the streets outside the school. Better head for the bus stop. Wow, that was quite an adventure. There are no exits, so we can use our inventory or we can quit. So that's pretty much the end of the game, so we'll quit. The usual message. So I just want to go through some of the changes that have been made in the code, and then we'll run some of it just to see how it works. So starting with the item class, one change I've made here is, although we've still got a list of string craft items, the parameters passed in has changed to a string array. And then in the constructor here, if we've got a null coming in, then we produce a new list string. If it's not null, then the craft items are sent to list using the to list thing here at the end of the array. So that I'll show you why that's being done later. So similarly in the weapon, we've changed the craft items from a list to a string array. But of course, as this is a subclass of item, it's still being stored internally as a list. So I've made a little note about that there. Location, I think there was a similar thing here. Yeah, the items required, or the items within the location, so if you'd left anything inside for players to pick up, it's still a list in the property here, but its supplied parameter is as a string array, so very similar. And in the constructor here, similarly, if it's null, it's set as a new string, and if it's not null, if it's an actual array, then the array is converted to list. Again, I'll show you why. While we're in the location class, there's some changes to display location. Can't remember whether I did this before, but in the exits we've added in what is at the north, east, south and west, so that the player can see what location is actually in that direction. May have done that last time, can't remember. Otherwise, just some general tidying up, I think, around here. Yep, I've used this shared print lines for the output. Reason being that if the description is quite long, this will make sure it fits neatly into the 80 column width console without kind of breaking lines in the middle and making it look scruffy. So I'll go through the shared print lines shortly, but I think that was about it for display location. So program, let me see, no, shared. Okay, what I've done here is I've made these three new functions in there: pad line, format line and print lines, which I'll go through shortly when we go in the code. Player, I've added to the attack. We were originally supplying just the location. I'm now passing as a parameter the item that we're going to use in order to attack the enemy. So this will be a string, obviously, and that's dealt with in here by checking whether the string that we've passed to it equates to the key of a dictionary in the items directory, shared items, rather than just picking one that happens to be a weapon, which is what we were doing before. So we pass in a pre-chosen weapon from an additional menu. So you'll see that shortly, I hope. Okay, so that one's the attack menu. I don't think there was anything else changed in the player. I think I deleted actually a function that was in here, display player. Yes, I've removed display player. That's gone into a new file called debug. I'll come back to that in a second. That's the player. Let's save that one. Game, quite a few changes in there, and we'll go through most of them as we're running the code. So debug has now, what I've done is everything that we're displaying, we're in debug mode to kind of check that what we're loading in is all working, has been moved here. So we've got the display enemies, display items, display locations and display player. The great thing is now that even when loading in from a file, each of these can be run to check whether what you've loaded in is correct, or if it's not working right, at least to give you some idea to try and find out why it's not working. So that's pretty much it for that one. Okay, right, so what I'll do now is just get the game running to a point where one of these new shared things comes into force, and we can go through that. Right, so I've put a stop position in the game class here. where it's about to load in a game from file. So I've run it to that point. So I'm going to choose the school.txt here, press enter, and of course it's now waiting for me. So we're going to load from file, and we're going to load in the schools.txt file there. So let's press F11. Okay, now this load from file has been altered quite a bit. What I was finding is that when I had a list of variables kind of here, that I had to read the file in a quite specific order in order to get each of the objects made up. And I'd accidentally put something the wrong way round, and of course it wouldn't read in properly because of that. So I've made some changes which has been reflected in the Lua and Python versions of this, and this is the way I've done it in here. Is first of all, I've created a new static class in here called data. So this is the data class. So it's a subclass within the game class here, so it's used only by game, and it's basically some static variables instead of having them as separate variables in the load from file, with some default values. So most of them are strings, a couple of ints, and then we've got a couple of string arrays, which is the craft items and items. This is where some changes were made in the classes themselves because of the fact that we're now using string arrays rather than lists. In this same static class data, we've got a reset function which just returns those back to the default values that you have up here. And then the fix int and fix list. The fix list is now changed. Maybe that should have been called fix array, but never mind, it does the same job, and it now returns a string array rather than a list, and they are part of the data class. So let's show you how that works. So when we load in from file, we're reading all the lines in from the file, and then for each line we're going through. We're splitting each line as before into these various parts to try and construct the new object. But you'll notice that this time I've got data.name equals value if the property that we're looking for is name, and then data.description, data.craft items, and then use the fix list and so on. So it does much the same as it did before, but it's storing them inside this data class. And then once we have completed this variable completed, which is set at 0 at the beginning here. Once we have gone through and we've got the name, the description, the craft items, it increases the completed by 1. And once we've reached 5, we know that we have got 5 objects. So it doesn't matter, 5 properties for that object. So it doesn't matter which direction, which order they were put in the file. So if I happen to have uses in front of craft items, it doesn't matter. As long as we've got them grouped together, it will read all of the 5 required properties first before adding to the items, and then we're passing data name, data description, so on. Then we're resetting data so that those are returned to their default values, changing completed back to 0, and then the whole thing goes through for the next line round. So that works quite well. I'll just give it one iteration just to show you how that goes. So we'll go F11 here. So we've read in all the lines from our file, and then for each one, we've done all this before. So we've now got, for example, the property is name, the object is item. So this is to create an object item, property name, and the value is empty at the moment. So we'll step through. So the object is item, and we know the property is name. So data name, which is currently, of course, an empty string, is going to have the value of rusty key. So this will be the first item that's in this list. And then we're increasing completed from 0 to 1. So that will go through all of these in the same way as it did before. I'll just do similar for the craft items there, so we'll run that through. So we're now going to go through the craft items, and then what that does is the value we're passing is empty, so it's going to return a new string array with 0 elements. So what I will do is just to put a stop there, so that if we do go on to something else that has got an actual craft items are in there. But before I do that, we'll just go down to where we're going to add this to the items. So we'll press continue to there. We can now untick that one. And now we're going to add the rusty key. Description is an old rusty key, looks like the sort you'd use for a cupboard. Craft items is an empty string. Data uses is 0, and the data container is empty. So that's now going to go to the add to items as before and add it in. So let's do that. So the add to items again has had this change of now a string array to craft items. I've done the same with the enemies, weapons and locations. Instead of a list, we've now got a string array of items or craft items. So those have all been changed similarly. So it's now going to add those. If I just F11 there, so the craft items, we're now sending this empty string, and as we saw in the beginning of this section, the object itself, the class itself, will send that craft items array into a list if there's anything to put in there. So I won't dally too much on that one. We're going to continue until we can get this one to come up here. So I'll press continue. Done that one. Okay, so here we are. We've got a value of blunt pencil semicolon pencil sharpener as being sent in. So it's now going to split that into 2 items, which will be the blunt pencil and pencil sharpener. So there'll be 2 strings within our string array. F11. So that has fixed that, and the craft items now is the blunt pencil and the pencil sharpener. So similar to as it was when there were lists of strings, but reason for doing this is that because of the way C# works, which I have come across before but I'd forgotten about, is that although when you pass a list, you're passing the list by value, the contents of the list are by reference. So what was happening was that I was creating all my objects, then when the data class here had, instead of arrays, had string lists, I was clearing them. So craft items dot clear seemed logical, clear the list. And what was happening is it was deleting the items that were in the object already because they were internally by reference. So it took me a while to work that out. But by passing this string array, because they're not dealt with in the same way, we can now safely pass them to the constructors of our objects without having them deleted afterwards, because we have cleared the original list that it was referring to. So nightmare, but it's now working fine. So that's right, that was done. So I won't dwell any further on that. We'll go along to the next section that we want to check out. Right, so the next point I wanted to stop at is we've now going through the debug display. So we're just starting on the shared locations. Now some of the descriptions in here are very long, so I wanted to show you how that's now being dealt with. I just want to pick one that I know has a long description here. Let's see if we can find that one. No, that one's fine. We'll pass by that one. Let's check this one. Yeah, I think this will be long enough. So far we've got the dictionary shared location contains a dormitory, item required, north, east, south, west. In the 1960s, there are a number of empty beds. The room is untidy. And then the items, pencil sharpener, rusty key. So what I'm looking for is a description that is longer than that, which I think this next one is. So we can show you how that works. So we'll step through here. So what we've done is to call this new shared.print lines, and we're passing the description in. So if I just hover over the description, there we go. So a creaky wooden storage cupboard, it smells of mothballs, there must be something in here you can adapt. So it's a reasonably long description, but I wanted to make sure that it fitted in to this line here. So this I believe is 100, yeah, this one's 100 columns wide. I've actually set it to the width of the window here, which is 100, because I set it up here, look, width equals 100, and then I've set the window size to 100 by 25, I believe it was. Yeah, 25. So this is 100 columns across 25 rows down. So we're going to pass the description, and then we've sent along with it the width, an empty string for the border character. There's no kind of border to it, and then we want it to align left. So let's go into the shared print lines. So we're in the shared class now, and we've got this print line. So there's our text description, and we've got the length 100, the border is nothing there, and the align is left. So we step through this. The way this works is that we set off an integer row number so that we can return the row at the end of it, just to let the calling function know how many rows have been used in the printout. And then internally inside this shared area is this format line. So we're going to call that and pass it again, the text, the length, the border, and the align. So let's do that. Okay, so we're calling that. So we've got an empty list here called return list, which is the one that will be returned at the end of this function here. We're checking whether the border is equal to anything, because I might have had, say, one of those UTF-8 characters here to give it an edge like you see on the menus, but as it happens, the border is equal. So if there was a character in the border, it would reduce the length, which is currently at 100, to 98. But as there isn't one, that should ignore that. Now, the next thing to check is the length of our text overall. There it is, it's 117. If it was less than length, and length is 100, then we would just simply add that line to the list and then return the list. But as it's longer, we're going to split it up. So let's press F11. So what I've done here is to split the text, which is all that lot, description of a Weeki wooden storage cupboard, blah, 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 using the space character into a string array. So if we hit the button there, and the string array has words on it, has 19 words in it. There we go. So you've got all the words coming up. So description, a creaky wooden, and so it goes on. So yeah, there's even more. So that's this entire sentence broken up into separate words. And then what we're doing here is we're going to recombine those words until they reach the maximum length. So what this suggests here is we're going through a normal for loop starting at 0 and ending at just under the length of the words. So it's going to go through every word in that array and deal with it. So let's start on that one. Now, if the text length, which is currently 0 because text here was set as an empty string, plus the words of whatever index is there, length, so the first word has a length of 12 because the word is description. Okay, so if we put description in there, will that be less than the total length of 100? Yes, it will. So we're going to add that to the text by using this interpolated string. So we put the word in with a space just after it. So the text is now description colon space. You can just about make that out. So we're going to step through again and again until we get to the point where the total of the length with the word that we're about to add would be greater than 100 characters. So if I now put a stop point in there, we can hit the continue button, and so far the text is description: a creaky wooden storage cupboard, it smells of mothballs, there must be something in space. There's a space at the end of that sentence there. So this will now trim away that space so that we've got exactly the same words, but it ends abruptly on in. So that's ready now. That line is ready to add to our return list. But I want to make sure that it's a full 80 characters long. So we're now calling this pad line, passing it the text. The length is 100. The line is on the left side, and no border character. So that again is in here. So we've got these three functions: pad line, format line, and print lines that work together. So I'll just pass that in. So this is the text passed in. So we're in the pad line now. So let's just get that going. So first thing it does is to check whether the length of the text is an even or an odd number. So at the moment the text length is 97. So it needs to be made to an even number. So we're going to add a space to it. So if I press F11 there, we're adding the space. And now the text length should be 98. So we've got a text length that we can, if we were doing a center split, which we're not, then we would have had the correct number of spaces to apply both before and after that string. But as we're aligning to the left, we're just going to pad right with length, which is 100, minus the text length, which is 98. So just two spaces are going to be added to that. So our text currently ends with a single space there because we just added one back here. So we'll press F11. So the filler is not actually really used in this case, but it's an empty string. The align is left, so the text is pad right with that space. So we now have a text that is 100 characters long, but ends with the appropriate number of spaces. Then we're going to return the border, which is empty, the filler, which is empty, the text, which we've just padded out, filler empty, and border empty, and that's what we're returning. So that goes back now to here. So we've now added that to our return list. If we just see what's in the return list already, there's nothing so far. So we press F11. So our return list now has this first part of the description already in it. The text is now reset back to whatever word we're currently at. We're on line 15, so the 15th word in and a space. So we press F11. So the text is now equal to here, space. Then it's going to loop through again until it either reaches, so we're going to add words to it, or it reaches so long that we need to put it back in. So we know that's not going to happen. So let's put that there and hit the green button. So our return list currently has just one item in it, which is that one. And we've now, text has got here, you can adapt, question mark, space. So we're going to trim the extra space from it. press F11. So text is now here you can adapt ? That's it. And then as long as that piece of text is longer than 0, in other words, we didn't by pure accident in the manipulation of our lines have it fit exactly in. So we've got a few words left over. Then we can add this one into our return list. Again, padding the line, which we did before. And now we can check what the return list contains. It's got 2 items in it, and there's the 2 parts of our description. And here you can adapt with that. Now, I've just noticed, actually, not that it matters, but the length of the here you can adapt is short of the 100 characters. It doesn't actually matter. The whole purpose was just to get it in to make sure that it yeah, I think that's okay. It's just to make sure that each of these lines was a maximum of 100 characters. If it's slightly less, then that doesn't matter. So okay, we're going to return that list. So now we've got this list of lines, which we'll just populate with our 2 sections in it, and then for each one of those we're going to write it out onto the console. So if I go to that one just before I press the F11, that's how it stands at the moment. So we're about to put description down here. Let's hit F11 and make sure I've got it in here, not on the console. Which I'll now drag in. There we go. So we've now got the description. There must be something in. So that's as far as we've got so far. And then if I get the next line down, F11, or there, and bring that back across again. Here you can adapt. So that's the way this is now working, to split long lines so that they don't break in the middle of a word, which looks scruffy. It puts it across neatly to make sure that you don't have any mid-word breaks. So I don't think we need to go through it any further. That was the major changes that have been made today. There are some changes within the keyboard file that make it more decorative, but you can have a look through yourself for that. It just adds extra decorative lines and so on there. So that, I think, will give you a pretty good idea of what's going on, and hopefully you can adapt all of this to make your own games and adapt the code itself to include things like maybe food that needs eating to keep your player nourished if he gets attacked and loses health. There's a whole bunch of things that you can do which is kind of outside the scope of this tutorial. So leave any comments or ideas or any mistakes I've made in the description, please. Thank you.